Shall we get started? Thanks to everybody for joining us. A couple of housekeeping items before we get rolling here. This webinar is being recorded. If any of you should want a copy of the presentation, we'll actually be posting it on our PeopleSpace website later after the call. Because we've anticipated quite a few people on the call, I think 200 plus visitors today, we will be muting everyone and addressing questions at the very end. Feel free to use the chat button, which you'll find in the upper right-hand corner, and we will do our best to cover all your questions. If for any reason we can't cover them, feel free to include your email address and we'll just circle back. We are hosting a second webcast if you have to drop off early or if you would like to come back or invite more to join you on Thursday, May 14th at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My name is Holly Rau, and I will be one of your hosts and facilitators today as we enter this important discussion around evolving workspace strategies. I would love to acknowledge many of our PeopleSpace customers and partners who have joined us for the call today, but also an expanded audience from the National Eventbrite site and some professional organizations as well. If some of you don't know about PeopleSpace, we're a 20-year-old company, and we assist clients with everything from design fabrication to architectural products like raised floors, demountable walls, custom and contract furniture. Virtually any part of your office landscape we can assist you with. We have 7 locations up and down the West Coast to serve you, and our mission is to help you create environments where people thrive. Before we get started, I would love to introduce you to my colleagues and co-hosts. Again, my name is Holly Rau. I am lucky enough to be the Managing Director in Los Angeles, California, and I am also a former ethnographic anthropologist. I'll be framing up our challenge today, touching on what's happening now as we attempt to unseal the office and ready it for its people, and also hitting a little bit about communication and change management. Adam?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Ferry. I'm the Managing Director for PeopleSpace in Irvine, where we're headquartered. Today, I'm going to be sharing a resource called Bluescape, and it's built around a conversation of COVID-19 and the resources that might be relevant to us.
Hello, my name is Gynjer Peck. I'm the Design Director and manage our design talent throughout our locations. I will be addressing the return to workspace strategy, as well as what we are doing to assist our clients to get their spaces ready to reopen.
Thank you, Gynjer. Rest assured, we have a great team, some very practical deliverables for you to share today, and we'll continue this conversation ongoing. So the evolving workspace strategy, evolve, we picked that name for a reason. It does denote change. At PeopleSpace, we define it as continual learning and knowledge sharing. It's actually a published part of our core process, and it's the continuous journey we take with each one of our customers, knowing that the only thing we can count on that is constant is change. The novel coronavirus, the black swan, as our economists call it, these sudden events, not unlike 9/11, can cause us to pivot and shift just at a moment's notice. And as human beings, we are actively reshaping our thinking in the moment. We are forced to change our social behaviors, which we've developed over millions of years, pretty tough thing to undo, and the way we interact in physical domains. In this moment, now more than ever, we are analyzing, sharing, and recrafting an environment that is safe and can better support our employees and our customers. Although heroic efforts are being made globally, we are still planning for a return to workplace in a pre-vaccine era. Americans are growing increasingly anxious to escape the depths of their small apartments, their rowdy children, to resume a life once lived. I thought it'd be helpful to share what we're doing right now in the present to prepare for the weeks to come so we can get people back to the office. If any of you are like me, you've been doing your homework. You've been reading voraciously, listening to podcasts, webcasts like this, following the many news and CDC, World Health Organization updates. We've been busy trying to keep ourselves safe and listening for some semblance of hope. For weeks, business leaders have been reaching out to the real estate community, talking to our building owners, our landlords, to better understand what the transitional spaces will look like inside of our office buildings, even before we've stepped foot into our own suite. How much space am I going to have in the elevator? How's the usage of the elevator going to be managed? What improvements will be made to reduce touch points? A lot of people are looking at HVAC, temperature, humidity, controls, air filtration systems. Those are pretty common asks right now. A new one is actually the ask for fresh airflow. There's many predictions happening in this moment where we'll all potentially be finding ourselves within 30 to 60 days having our meetings outdoors. It's becoming the new sanctuary. There's some obvious things like cleaning, sanitization efforts underway, and there's some even more aggressive versions of that with UVC lighting and electrostatic disinfection that are being revisited. Not a new thing. Most people didn't know what electrostatic disinfection was, but it's been used widely in the healthcare and education community. Anecdotally, I'll share a couple of customer examples where this is happening in the present. We have two just down here in SoCal that have, campus-level organizations. They're Goliath-sized groups. They've been deemed essential. Unfortunately, they've had COVID cases, and they're just simply not taking any risks. So PeopleSpace is helping them actually with electrostatic disinfection, which can kind of return them back to center. It disinfects 99.9% of both your surface and your airs. As we are helping to perform vital health and safety measures, we want the business to go on. But first, we need to look at the people. We've been working more closely probably than ever with our HR teams to better understand who our at-risk employee population is. We have to look at things like age category, existing health concerns, what their living situation is like. Who and how fast can we bring people back? I think it's important to note 90% of the organizations are staggering and phasing and bringing people back in. And sure, there's a couple of big fame technology companies in the Valley, the Silicon Valley, that are publishing end-of-year return to work allowances. But most are staggering. Common scheduling platforms are Monday, Wednesday, every other Friday for a while. And it's funny, when you think of some of these programs as pilots and what it can mean for business, it kind of forces you to look back and reflect on the past as well. In 2009, at the beginning of the last recession, I was privileged to work on some of the earliest alternative workplace strategy pilots in SoCal. Well-intended, many of you will remember this time, the goals were pretty consistent. It was cut costs, reduce real estate, open up collaboration, eliminate silos. We pulled everybody out of their 8x8, 68-inch high cubicles, put them in these little modest size benching stations, built up these elaborate social and collaborative parks to create destinations for people to exchange. And we sent roughly 20% or even up to 40% of the workforce home to work 60% of the time. The result? Collaboration certainly improved in the office. Costs were better maintained. But home office teams created new silos that had to be reversed in the years to come. Fast forward to 2013 and 2014, you may remember Marissa Mayer and the Yahoo story, or even IBM. All those office workers came right back. So times have changed, but most innovation-based companies have not forgotten the importance and the idea of knowledge sharing. It's better to do that in person, in the moment, and not have to leave it to planned, scheduled meetings for the exchange. Some of the other questions we're asking ourselves: how are we keeping people safe in the office? Well, the last thing I want to do is steal Gynjer's thunder. She will walk us through a couple of great tools here in just a moment, but let's look at a couple extremes just for a moment. There are sensors, employee tracing and tracking that are being used. You may have heard of this in the news even over the weekend. Some are doing surveys. They're asking you questions like, what's your temperature today? Have you had antibody testing? How do you get to work? Are you taking private cars or public transportation? Some employees are getting grades or even clearance levels to come back to work. Think of, in an airport environment, what CLEAR or TSA PreCheck might do for you. This might be new to Western culture, but it's certainly not new to Eastern culture. And it's been used in Asia for close to a decade, and even as recent as the COVID outbreak in Wuhan. It's important to remember that every organization and even every office is going to be different, but change is a-coming. If you've studied the most sophisticated change management programs or well-managed crisis management platforms, you'd find that the framework is almost identical. Communication, communication, communication. Early, ongoing, scheduled. Cadence is very important. It gives people things to feel very much part of, they look forward to. Last-minute communication, on the other hand, isn't quite as good. User input, roundtables, task force, office ambassadors versus the armchair leadership approach. You'll gain far more influence and a higher adoption rate if you feel people are part of the solution. Take time to listen and be present. There is a lot going on in the world, right? But you can't ask them to be there if you're not willing to be there yourself. Teach and provide training. Social distancing, wiping down all the surface, an increase in hygiene and hand washing, best practices for path of travel, use of PPE when appropriate, and even the subtle things around social etiquette. Be transparent. Progress does not run in a straight line. I think everyone can recognize that at this time. But being transparent will instantly earn you the trust and the respect of your employee base. Provide information as a resource. Adam is going to share a great tool for this in a second. Information empowers people. It makes them feel more in control. So we can build a trusted and valued partnership with our teams that deeply extend into long-term employee and employer commitments. I think you'll find retention and productivity also become at an all-time high during times like this. So just the way the healthcare community is on the front line of this important pandemic, our people are on the front line of our business, and we want to provide them with every bit of physical and emotional safety as humanly possible. Adam, I've teed this up for you, my friend. Take us away to information as resource and Bluescape.
Thanks, Holly. Again, my name is Adam Ferry, Managing Director here in Irvine. And on behalf of my fellow Managing Directors, Holly Rau, Bill Newcomb in the Bay Area, Mark Canez in Portland, and Howard York in Seattle, we thank you for joining us. If you are not already connected with one of our PeopleSpace team members, one of the 5 of us look forward to connecting with you. Take a minute and share my screen here. All right, so this is Bluescape. Bluescape is a unique cloud-based collaboration tool that is part of the Hayworth family of brands. It is exclusive to Hayworth and their dealer partners. We use it on a daily basis to document, collaborate, and navigate a 6-step process with our clients. Why did we create this resource? Mainly because the conversation around COVID-19 is an evolving one. Evolving is part of our DNA. On the right of this blue box, you see the 6 steps beginning with discover and ending with evolve. We live in that evolve process right now, and our goal with this resource is to make that process more effective and efficient for you and your teams. At PeopleSpace, we see the lack of clarity in this season as an invitation. This moment is calling us, everyone on this call, to evolve, to work in a collaborative partnership that will redefine the ways that our spaces will empower well-being and productivity to help people thrive. This Bluescape workspace will evolve. It is constantly changing with the latest information. With this conversation, in order to provide up-to-date knowledge, perspectives, and solutions for our customers and our partners in commercial real estate, design, project management, and construction. In a recent meeting, I was asked what the cost is for this, and wanted to let you know that there is no charge or cost for the access to this workspace. Bluescape is an enterprise-level software and hardware product used by companies like Disney, Pixar, and other Fortune 500 companies. It is available for purchase exclusively from Hayworth, but this CV19 workspace that we're sharing today is available at no charge. If you'd like to have access to this workspace, email us at covid19@peoplespace.com and use the subject line Bluescape Access. All right, let me give you a quick tour of this resource. As you can see as I zoom out, there's a lot of empty space in this. Imagine this to be a football field's worth of space for you to build information and share. We've narrowed down the content today to this COVID-19 conversation, and I've broken it out into 6 categories that work deductively. So on the top left, we have guidelines, strategy, and professional perspectives. In the middle is corporate real estate. In the top right is architecture and design perspectives. Directly down from that is Hayworth. The middle and the bottom is PeopleSpace. And the left is product solutions. Let's look a little bit more closely at each of these. Guideline, strategy, and professional knowledge is probably the broadest category to work with. And you may recognize some of the articles or pieces of information that you see here. Bluescape is unique because you can place websites, videos, individual PDFs, or full PowerPoint presentations, basically in any file format. So you can imagine the different resources that can be available. You see guidelines in here, for example, the OSHA guidelines for workspaces, or the CDC guidelines. We've also used or uploaded each of the California, Oregon, and Washington websites where we have our offices, as well as the county websites for additional information. One of the newest resources we just put in here was from the California Department of Public Health, and it's more details and recommendations for planning our workspaces. Many of you familiar with the Harvard Business Review, providing a lot of great information. We've also got perspectives from Deloitte and McKinsey and Company. There are news articles in here. Holly referred to some of the larger named clients in Silicon Valley and their return to work strategy. That came from an article here in the New York Times just recently. In addition to that, we've got the trackers that you might be familiar with from Johns Hopkins, Infection 2020, and Worldometer. And again, this is going to be a constantly evolving and expanding resource. The next canvas we have is the corporate real estate. You see there's numerous articles, and a lot of the resources that are being sourced in news articles and things are coming from the perspectives that we see here from Cushman & Wakefield, CBRE, Newmark Knight Frank, and JLL. There are certainly more, and we will continue to add those. I think the value of including multiple voices is that they are unique. Each of these companies and each of the categories that we have in here are adding value, adding perspective, and adding understanding in new ways. The goal, again, for this resource is that you and your teams, being more and more informed, might be able to make better and better decisions as this conversation evolves. We imagine that our policies are going to change. I'm sure yours will as well. Highlighting one example of what's in here is the 6 Feet office from Cushman & Wakefield, which has been the basis of a lot of different discussions. And something unique about Bluescape is that you can actually access the website directly in this environment. So this helps ensure that the information in here is going to stay relevant and up to date for anybody who has access to it, because it'll be updated in the web environment, and that will translate into this environment as well. The next category is architecture and design. And again, this is a snapshot of information that continues to build. We've got global teams, global companies represented, as well as regional and more local. Gensler has a particular resource that's called Rerun that they're using to give their clients a perspective on how they should be planning their spaces. I've also included different website resources from different companies where they have the more general knowledge base that they're including, so it isn't just individual sites that you'll have to sort through. For example, the Gynjer CV19 website dialogue has a number of different resources that are continually updated, and you'll find that throughout this resource. Next, we have our perspective from Hayworth. Hayworth is our aligned major manufacturer, and they have 70 years of evidence-based knowledge and research that they're bringing to the table in response to this conversation. As they continue to evolve, their resources will be placed here, and they have everything from white papers, cleanability resources, even to design considerations. Gynjer will touch more on this as we move forward, but here's one example of how one example of a current state configuration moving into the short term, adapting in the short term, and then maybe the long-term solution that moves forward over time. In this next canvas, this is our PeopleSpace canvas. We're having this conversation right alongside you. This is our Irvine showroom, the first floor of it. And we have to do the same types of planning and have the same types of considerations. And that's going to be the third part of our talk this morning. Gynjer is going to be sharing more detail on that. Our goal as a company is to be a resource to anyone who needs it. If you're planning your space and planning your policies, and we can contribute into that conversation, that's our goal. This resource, the Bluescape resource, will be part of that, and then also what Gynjer shares later will be as well. I'm going to wrap it up here with one more section, and that's the Product Solutions tab. There are a lot of different products out there that are available in the market. We're helping clients sort through those options and find the best one that fits their solution. One thing I will point out in this category is that PeopleSpace has 3 different custom divisions. One of them is called Slate Custom Studio, and they've been adapting on the fly, creating unique solutions such as this 8-inch deep cabinet that has a sliding door that might provide a little bit more, a little greater sense of safety or separation from aisleways that they can pull out and use. Here's a rendered graphic that represents what that might look like. Once again, we're grateful for your time, and we're here to contribute into this conversation and continue to evolve with you and your customers. Gynjer, thanks so much. Your turn.
Thank you, Adam. I'm going to talk about our plan for bringing our teammates back to the office and what we are doing to help our clients get their spaces ready to reopen. Except for our service centers and warehouses, we too have been working from home since early March. As we prepare to bring our staff back, we are addressing the steps involved and how we will communicate our message. We formed a Return to Workspace committee, and this committee has individuals who represent our sales locations, human resources, and marketing. Our goal is to create and execute our Return to the Workspace protocol. As you know, there are a lot of items to take into consideration as we get our spaces ready for our staff, as well as putting protocols in place to keep them healthy once they return. I'm going to walk you through our internal document that we will be rolling out to our staff. As the design director, my role is to ensure that all locations are adhering to our company guidelines and processes. Working with our Return to Workspace committee, we created this protocol to help our staff understand what our new day will look like when we return. We will be hosting meetings with each office to roll out this new protocol. These are just a few pieces of our plan. We realize that yours may be very different. We are creating social cues and signage to help our staff know how to use these spaces safely to create social distancing. We are also staggering our workforce in some of our locations, as well as modifying our meeting rooms and workstations. Part of the committee is to help us get our message into the sales offices as we evolve the protocols. They will also help to provide oversight within all of our locations. As I had mentioned before, the committee has individuals that represent all of our locations, and they were handpicked to help us with this communication.
Gynjer, this is so great that you have taken the time to include all of the offices. Can you walk us through sort of what channels we have to communicate and benchmark all this information?
Absolutely. For 7 weeks now, Jesse Bagley, our CEO, has been hosting a weekly town hall for all of our staff, and that's a great way that we've been able to get out all of our information, and that's every week. We also have an internal intranet that has a COVID-19 section that we are publishing all of the great information that's on our Bluescape site, as well as what our protocols and processes are.
That's great. Thank you.
As far as internal meetings, I don't know about all of you, but I'm sure looking forward to getting back into the office and meeting with my coworkers face-to-face. Virtual meetings still will be a requirement and necessary for large meetings. However, we are really looking forward to getting back into the office. For deliveries, as a showroom, we have a lot of deliveries that come in, samples, furniture, etc. We need to make sure that anything that comes into the facility is clean and sanitized prior to being dispersed. And as far as food and beverages, we sure love our food, and we have a lot of great reps and vendors that love to bring us goodies on a regular basis. However, moving forward, we will only be using prepackaged food and drinks moving forward. We have learned about hygiene and cleaning through this pandemic. We've addressed some hygiene procedures, and part of those will be regular cleaning of your desk. Now that will be every day, we will be requiring that the individuals have a clean desk policy, so when they leave, our cleaners at night can make sure they're sanitized as well as cleaned. We will also be enacting a meeting room cleaning as well, and we're asking that any team that meets in a workspace or a meeting room clean up after they leave, so it's ready for the next group. Cell phones. I have 2 cell phones, and I lay them all over every surface I can see, so it's really important that we are also cleaning all of our technology on a regular basis to keep them sanitized. Masks and gloves and temperature taking. Although we will not be requiring our staff to wear masks and gloves, we will be providing them for anyone who feels that they would like to wear them. We will be requiring that our guests do wear masks during business hours. And for temperature checks, we also will be requiring that all employees and guests have their temperature taken as they enter the facility every day. We will not be keeping track of the temperature, just the fact that it was taken. How long does this virus live on surfaces? Well, this has been very eye-opening for me as I have been living in my home for the past several weeks and cleaning everything that comes in. So social cues throughout our space, we will be making sure that this is listed everywhere to remind our staff to make sure that we are cleaning everything on a regular basis. This is our Irvine location, and as you can see, it's not very densely populated. This happens to be a showroom on our first floor. However, we do have a few areas that I like to call hut zones, and so the after picture will show that some of the conference rooms are social spaces, meeting areas, break rooms. What you're seeing are 6-foot circles, and that is denoting a specific individual in those areas. So we are making sure that all of our staff know the occupants that can go into a space and be safe. These are handouts that we also are making sure are available to everybody in our locations so they know how to clean their specific desks, workstations, meeting rooms, and areas. We want to make sure that we are cleaning our products with proper cleaning supplies so we do not damage them. And then there's also a lot of great resources, as Adam had talked about in our Bluescape page.
Gynjer, this is so helpful. It's very practical. I can imagine a space in which people might ask if they could have a copy of this. Is this something we'd be willing to distribute?
Absolutely, we're happy to. Just ask us for it, and we can send it out to you.
Part of the power of publishing, of course, is then you're held accountable to walk the talk, right?
Absolutely.
Great job.
Thank you.
Love to hear a little bit more about the design guide, too, that you're developing for PeopleSpace.
Great, thank you. So there are a lot of design considerations to be taken into account as we start working through what our new world is going to look like, so to speak, in our office environment. Specific to physical distancing and density, that's really where we are going to be able to help our clients most. The physical design considerations really are, it's not a one-size-fits-all. In the past, when we were working with clients, a lot of times it started with typical development. How would you like your team to work? Now it really is taking a holistic approach, looking at the whole facility, materiality that we're using, how are we de-densifying spaces, and other design implications are around safety. How are we going to work with our staff on interaction and collaboration? What does user control look like moving forward? And how can we start integrating the new technology into the spaces as we are designing our new environments? This is a traditional floor plate that we may have worked on in the past. Really, it was around a team, an area. Where are our social spaces? Where's our break area? How can we work as a group in a specific floor plate? And the next is really about how we are starting to work with our clients on an ongoing basis. The holistic approach is really taking everything that is happening in the whole facility into account, from the entry to the receptionist, to the break room, to the meeting areas, all the way to how staff is working through the space. So we're really looking at how can we help our clients move forward to get the best floor plate for their new working reality. This is an option that we worked with for a client that went from 110 workstations originally down to 76. And what they really wanted to do was to just look how they could de-densify the long term. This isn't something they want to do day one, but they really feel that the long term, they want to get down to a smaller workforce in the office, work more remote. And so we came up with an option to help stagger their workstations, increase the size, as well as disperse their ancillary options. This is a software company in the Bay Area that has a very dense floor plate. Their staggering approach with divider screens will help with the density issue short term. They also asked us for a second option where they wanted screens that were cleanable. And this is a product that we worked with our custom division Slate on. These screens are not only cleanable, but they also provide great transparency and really help open up the floor plate. Here we are looking at more of a traditional office in Southern California for a construction company. Fortunately, they already have great social distancing in their floor plate, but they really wanted some help with their bullpen areas and the heights of their panels. They currently have 50 high panels, and with height adjustable tables, they wanted to be able to increase the vertical social distancing by adding on stackers and glass screens. A lot of the work that we are starting to do is really working with our customers on what their business issues are. So are they thinking about getting everybody back day one? Are they staggering the workforce? What is their long-term business drivers? The short term could be, I want to stagger, I want to have some people come in, not everybody, it's a volunteer basis. Maybe we have some options that we can just give them some reconfiguration guidelines. Long term would be maybe adding onto their kit of parts, adding in more screen, visual privacy, and maybe opening up the floor plate to de-densify. And this is a therapeutic company in the Bay Area, and they had a very open workstation, and they wanted us to help them in the interim come up with something that they could just have some division between their users. And we just looked at a typical very quickly for them. We added some wing panels. However, after some more business conversations, they decided that they really wanted to give users more elbow room, so to speak, with the social distancing and lighten up their floor plate. So they've taken out 2 of the workstations within a 6-pack. They've added in some soft screens and some beautiful laminate panels. This is a very traditional cluster that most of you are familiar with or probably have in your own offices. This is a 50-inch high frames with height adjustable tables. And this client actually had a unique condition where their floor plate was such that they did not have the option to be able to de-densify and stagger their workstations. Their aisles are not 6 feet and they're not 6 feet deep. So in order to ensure that users didn't have anybody walking behind them, they actually removed some workstations. We helped them with a new path of travel that they'll be putting up signage and floor decals so their users can actually move around the space in a safe way. Here we're actually using existing kits apart and we're just adding to it.
Gynjer, this is pretty interesting. It's clear that through the different examples that you've shown, some people are just adding temporary screens or building things up, and this timeline does change depending on the conversation from client to client. I like this example because it looks like we did 3 different things. We took an existing kit of parts. How high was that base panel when we started?
32 inches.
So it looks like we stacked up screens and attached screens on the top left to a surface. The second one, we added a panel section with frameless glass. And then in the third option, we included frameless glass around this. There's a lot of options out there.
That's correct. And we wanted to give this client the options. They weren't sure how they were going to address the visual privacy. They wanted to just use their existing kit of parts. They wanted to have minimal impact from a price standpoint, and they didn't want to have to buy a lot of extra product to make this work. So we gave them 3 choices.
And what's the significance of 66 inches high? Is that a target that you're working with some clients?
So it's important when you're dealing with aisleways that may not give you your 6 foot social distancing, that you're giving the user some privacy from the people in the aisle walking by. If you're not within the 6 foot distancing. It's also important when you have work users that are side by side or front to back, specifically with height adjustable tables, because as they raise, if you have low panels, you need to make sure that vertically you're encompassing the users, so you're protecting them from the vertical social distancing. Very good.
Very good, thanks.
You're welcome. So thank you. I will ask Holly to share her final thoughts.
Well, thanks, you guys. By the way, this is a really meaningful charter. And I think anything that benefits people, our employees, our primary assets in business really are people. Adam, thanks for walking us through literally a plethora of research and making the Bluescape site available to everybody. I know everybody in their own time will explore this with and for their organizations. Gynjer, you brought us a 2-prong approach today addressing employee communication and protocols and a design toolkit. I think that's very helpful, very practical. I hope we've done right by the subject in representing the evolving workspace discussion holistically. I know I see a lot of questions up in chat, so if we could just take the remainder of the minutes here, maybe Adam, you can read through a few of these. And if we don't get to all of them, just remember we will be able to circle back with you on email. We're hearing some chatter about the CV19 email not working just yet. We will resolve that. And in the interim, you can email Adam Ferry. So Adam, you can provide your information at the end. Sure.
If you're having trouble with that website, you can always email me. It's first initial, last name, so it's AFERRY@peoplespace.com, and I'd be happy to help direct. We'll run through a few of these questions quickly. We did talk about the email address. noticing that many of the offerings shown are showing fairly short walls along open walkways. Realistically, will my employees feel safe sitting behind 4 to 5 foot tall walls? Is it a minimum wall height you are recommending? Gynjer, you want to take that?
It really depends on your floor plate. If you have very wide aisleways and you have the 6-foot aisle, as users are walking through, that's really that 6-foot distancing. The users that are sitting they may not feel safe, but it's still part of that 6-foot distancing. Really where you may want to start considering some higher options is if you have smaller aisle widths, 3 foot or 4 foot, you may want to put in some dividers to make the users feel safe who are sitting on the aisle.
And we have other questions asking how to get copies of the presentation. Again, we'll be sharing this webinar again in the recording of it. We also have a repeat on Thursday. And Holly, you said that was at 3 on Thursday?
2 p.m. on Thursday. And we'll be posting this on the PeopleSpace website, as I understand it. When will PeopleSpace?
Yeah, that's a great question. When will PeopleSpace be returning to their offices? It depends, like many of you, if you have offices in multiple locations, it is probably dictated by the state, the location, the county, and even local conditions in your city. For us in Orange County, we're beginning a soft welcome back to the office on the 18th. So that's coming this Monday. We will be phasing that in and working with each of our employees to bring them back in safely as we adapt our space as well. Is the 6-foot distancing negated if cubicles have high walls, or is it 6 feet for any non-enclosed space? Holly, what do you think?
Okay, so these particulates can live in the air for quite a while, we know, and they can travel depending on your HVAC and your circulation. So obviously, if you bring up your panel heights around you, you're creating somewhat of a shield anytime a sneeze, a cough, or even your breath. You have a spray, obviously. So to catch that spray, most people are just as a knee-jerk, and it seems pretty common sense to me that you would put something in front of that spray, the same way you would if you were wearing a mask or whatnot. Again, we talked about the materiality, so wipeable, cleanable, to be able to reset that at the end of each day. Does it negate it? Probably not. When you have something like the flu or COVID that's airborne, you will have trouble. You just simply will have trouble. So how we encapsulate is really up to all the various variables and structural variables around you. And behavior is probably more important than any of this, which is making sure that if you cough or sneeze, you're doing that in a shielded fashion.
Thanks, Holly. There was one other question here at the bottom about allowing staff to work from home. I think we're employing all strategies. I think all of the things that we talked about today, we're taking into consideration people that might individually be at risk, people who might have family members who could be at risk. I mean, this is a human conversation, and it's a very human problem that we're all working to solve. So if there are no other questions, we want to collectively say thank you again for your time. Are we getting more? Sorry.
Just one more.
Oh, yes, sorry. How will we be dealing with customers and visitors? Gynjer touched on it briefly as people approach our space. What are the types of things we're doing, Gynjer?
So for the foreseeable future, we will be asking and requiring that all customers and visitors wear masks when they are in our facility if they are here during business hours. That's just to make sure that our employees are feeling safe as well. We will also be putting in some signage and potentially floor decals in our lobby to ask our guests and visitors to wait in a specific area to be greeted versus just coming in and kind of walking through the space as some of our reps and vendors and clients do. So we're putting in some of those protocols in place now.
All right, thanks so much. Once again, on behalf of all of the managing directors in our different offices and the entire executive leadership team at PeopleSpace, we're grateful that you gave us some of your time today, and we hope that we can be part of your conversation moving forward with the resources that we've shared. Thank you so much for being with us, and we look forward to touching base with you soon, hopefully face-to-face.
That's right. Signing off.
Thank you.